Welcome to In the Cut, the show that gets you up close and personal with BN and our community. But good afternoon, morning, or evening, everyone. Welcome to In the Cut, the show that gets you up close and personal with BN and our community. I am Mandisa Thomas, founder and president of BlackNonbelievers, and I am your host for the show. In the Cut is a production of BlackNonbelievers, which is a 501c3 organization. Headquartered in the Atlanta area, we connect with other Blacks and allies who are living free of religion and might otherwise be shunned by family members and friends by providing a caring, friendly, and informative community. Instead of accepting dogma, we determine truth and morality through reason and evidence. And as always, the mission of BlackNonbelievers is to provide secular fellowship, nurture and support non-believers in coming out, which is also known as open identification, encourage pride in non-religious identities, educate the public on the history and current state of non-belief in Black communities, and organize events for charitable causes. Of course, as always, our website is blacknonbelievers.org, and BN welcomes all, regardless of age, gender identity, sexual identity, national origin, or racial identity. However, our content and our work prioritizes Black non-religious voices, but overall Black voices, period. So before we begin our interview and introduce our special guests, I just want to once again thank everyone who supported our summer fundraiser. You actually put us at close to 75% of our goal, which was awesome. Of course, all year round is good to support our work because it is needed. And I just want to share, earlier today, before we got started, I received a call from someone who viewed our website and who wasn't sure whether or not the number that they saw was a hotline number for people to reach out and talk about their religious struggles. And so I told this person that they reached my personal number, but that that we could set up a time to chat, because if there's one thing anyone knows about me is that, no matter who you are, if you reach out, whether it's via phone or via email, I tend to be very responsive because that is the way we work here at BlackNonbelievers. It is a personal touch because we are dealing with people, and we are also dealing with people who may be struggling and are in pain and who need support. And this is why I'm glad that today's show is also touching on religious trauma and therapy and support for people who are struggling, because this is always going to be important, whether you are seeing a clinician, which we do recommend, or you're looking for peer support. The work we do here is extremely important. And this got me to thinking about the possibility of establishing some sort of chat line or hotline, particularly for Black folks who are struggling with their identities and those beliefs, because there are other organizations that we do support who have chat lines and ways for people to contact them. And you got to remember that it's not a recruitment tool. You don't have to be a member of BlackNonbelievers. You don't have to be actively supporting us or financially supporting us to receive help from us, although we do encourage it because it is important. However, these are not recruitment tools because, we want people to come to an understanding and do that work for themselves, because that's what it is. There are no magical cures here. There is no waving of a magic wand. in which this all goes away. It is constant work and it takes constant support. And this is why organizations like ours exist. This is why we are needed. And I'm very, very proud of the way we do it, because we connect with people on that personal level to show that we understand that there are others who are going through it and that there is support out there for you. And this kind of stuff, these avenues and these mechanisms, they cost. There are costs involved, which is why we ask for donations, because in order for us to continue to run this show and the platform that we produce it under, as well as our ability to run our website, to do the events that we do, to connect with people the way we do. All of your support, the financial support, helps with that. And we really do appreciate all of it. Now, I will say that next month, in a couple of weeks, my birthday is coming up, and I'll be 47. I'm not ashamed of that age. I really am not. And I am still very, very proud of 12 years that we have been active as an organization, 12 years that we have been involved in community work, that we've been doing community work, reaching folks from all walks of life. These sorts of things are very, very important to me personally and to my professional development. And it is good for the development of our team members and also our members, our participants, because people deserve to know that they have an authentic and genuine community and support system for them, and that we are authentic and genuine and supportive of each other. And with that, we will be announcing some initiatives at the end of the show, where we hope that you will get more involved. And now we hope you continue to like this show. Please like and subscribe. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for us, for you to like our channel, subscribe, watch our videos, and help grow our community, help grow these connections as we continue to highlight people from our demographic and folks who are adjacent. This is it always has been important to us, and it will continue to be. So I just cannot thank all of you enough, everyone who is on the Being team, folks who are our members, folks who are our viewers. You really do make a huge difference in the work that we do. And I'd like to thank you all once again for that. Again, please do visit our website. The links will be posted in the chat if you'd like more information on how to support Black nonbelievers. But now we will begin our interview of our special guest today. It is my pleasure to welcome Camara Rajabari, who is the Ancestral Psychotherapist. Camara, whose pronouns are she and her, is an arts-based ancestral psychedelic-assisted psychotherapist, professor, an activist practicing and living in the unceded lands of the Choqueño and Ramaytush Ohlone peoples called Oakland, California. And those are the indigenous peoples of that land. In 2019, Camara trained with the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, also known as MAPS, and was a member of their first cohort of clinicians of color. She also practiced ketamine-assisted psychotherapy in the U.S., in the first U.S. clinic dedicated to serving low-income communities in the San Francisco Bay Area. Camara's private practice specializes in anxiety, depression, and intergenerational trauma experienced by Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Camara's approach is person-centered, imaginal, and inclusive. Her work focuses on trauma, ancestral healing, and the exploration and liberation of consciousness. She integrates her knowledge of non-ordinary states of consciousness with ancestral wisdom, ancient archetypes, dreams, imagination, and self-inquiry. Please help me welcome to the show Camara Rajabari, everyone. Welcome. It is a pleasure to have you on our show today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. And thank you to the BN community for inviting me here. And I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So as we do with all of our guests, please give us some background on yourself. Tell us about your journey, especially as it pertains to religion growing up. Please.
Okay, I think I'll go ahead and get started with that. I think I lost her. But yeah, my name is Camara. I was born in the southern United States, and that was in Alabama. Probably for many people, you'll know that there's a highly, probably more conservative religious practice down there that has happened as a result of slavery. I think I should still be going, so let me know if I'm not. I'm going to try to chat with people. Let's see. But and just in case, I'm going to keep going, and I can always repeat myself. And so I was raised in a family that can directly, because of our genealogy, we were able to trace back a lot of our family history. Great. Okay, somebody put in the chat, they could hear me. So my family, my great grandfather was enslaved until he was a teenager. And so in knowing that history of enslavement, also came with it the overlay of Christianity. And across the street from my grandparents' house in Mobile, Alabama, was a church that mostly my grandfather, I believe, belonged to. And I'll explain a little bit about the differences between my grandmother and grandfather. But my grandfather belonged to this church across the street that was actually built by slaves, enslaved people. And so it's one of the historic Black church. So that part of my life, I grew up having that church as a part of my family's religious practice. My grandmother, on the other hand, belonged to what was called an African AME church. And when I would go to that church, I started to notice, even as a child, there was something very distinctively different from the Baptist church that was across the street from their house. And it was like everyone wore all white. Everyone kind of, even though I think it was still Christian based, there was something about it that felt like it had an energy of Africanity in it. And we never really asked my grandmother much about her church. I think everyone, like my dad, my aunts and uncles, went to the Baptist church. But for me as a child, it was a little bit of a treat to experience something different. And so as I grew up, I think I started to understand our family wasn't really conservatively religious, although it was a part, going to church and supporting the church was a part of their daily lives. I think that my mother's side of the family was very religious. These were people who, in the religious South, you call them holy rollers. They were people who spoke in tongues when they went to church. They became possessed when they went to church. So I also had that experience. Although they lived in Mississippi, I would visit them and be with them on occasion in the summers. And I had when I would go there would be a lot of conservative experiences where my sister and I couldn't wear pants when we were there. There was a lot of kind of religious rules when we were at our other family's house. So I think what I took from that as I grew up, and at one point I even lived with my grandparents, the one that lived in Alabama. And I started to try to explain one day to my grandmother that I felt, even at a young age, that I had a personal relationship with God and I didn't need to go to church. And I tried to explain that one time and she was just like, and I said, yeah, I don't think I need to go to church. I feel like I can hear what I need to from spirit. Even though when I was young then, I didn't have a word for it. And so fast forward, I'm growing up and I realized that I was really clairaudient. I was clairvoyant. And, you know, that's more of what I understand today. But I mean, growing up and coming to that place, I realized that there was a lot of demonization of people who may have said that they were able to see things, people who were able to hear things, people who might have called themselves psychic. A lot of that was demonized. And so I think growing up, I'm just going to speculate that there are probably more than just me and the family that could tap into what I think is hearing my ancestors, what I think might be hearing my spirit guides. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know that there's a fear of that. And so growing up, I kind of knew after a while to keep pushing that line meant that I would be seen as somebody who was different, someone who was strange, someone who needed to go to church even more. And I think I wanted to resist that. And I think growing up, what I noticed was my parents didn't really make us go to church. They didn't. We moved to California. We didn't have a church home after that. And I think it became a choice. And after that, I just noticed myself moving more towards what I believed, and trying to be more curious about my own process. And also understanding that much of what was happening for me internally with my own inner wisdom, I was kind of holding to myself because I was part of a larger community that might have ostracized me or, you know, put me in some kind of box. And so I understand that being in that kind of box with who you are and trying to discover who you are, and knowing that there could be a religious context to how people view what you believe or what you practice. So that's kind of the past. But I would say that moving forward, what I've come to understand is that a lot of the Black community's relationship with religion was put there by enslavers and colonizers. And, you know, it's been happening. I mean, definitely it's happened in the United States, but it's happened around the world. And when you understand the context of what people were living with in a life and death situation, our indigenous beliefs, because I believe Black people are indigenous people. And we had indigenous practices that varied so much. And we had indigenous cosmologies. But when we were enslaved, it was necessary for in the United States and in certain areas to make sure that we didn't practice our cosmologies. In fact, they were outlawed, the slave codes. So it's just kind of understanding that history helps me to understand why some of us eventually begin to cling to religion, because it was the only way some people felt in the community that we were going to rehumanize ourselves after slavery. After that, you know, a lot of people thought, oh, the more that we can seem moral, the more that we can seem like we deserve to be treated well by these people, the more religious and pious we seem, we might be safe. But we understood too, that was not going to keep us safe. That was not. And to this day,
it was very performative, right? Mm-hmm. And so I had like had a follow-up question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that there were people who would have looked at folks who say they can hear and see like spirits and such, you know. Did you ever think about the irony of that, considering that many people like in those Baptist or those conservative denominations would say that they hear Jesus talking to them or that God was talking directly to them? Did you ever think about the irony of that in any way?
Right. It was the irony. And well, you know, I felt like too, I mentioned my grandmother's church and some of those mixed experiences, because what I found what I was able to do was link it to possession in how do you want to say, holy, I call it holy roller. I don't want to be, that's just kind of a term we use, but I'm trying to even remember holiness churches, possession, being ridden by the Holy Ghost. That was there. It's linked to a lot of indigenous African traditional religions where you become possessed. So a lot of people didn't understand that in many ways, the early Black church was really more of a container to syncretize a lot of the ancient African practices, although they were mixed because people weren't coming from the same communities. The early Black church wasn't so much about trying to be Christians. They were trying to use church as a gathering place, as a place to support each other, our mental wellness, being in a place where we could start to plan resistance. And you still see into the 60s, the church in some part was used for resistance, for meetings, for community meetings, for mental wellness. And there were some churches that really wanted to shift into the morality and making Black people part of a moral Christian paradigm. Whereas early church, in my opinion, and some research, that it was used more for us to organize, to get free, to get liberated. And these were legally the only places we could organize, the only places that Black people could meet as a group. So it's important to understand that the church's function changed historically after a while. But it is ironic.
Absolutely. We try to, yes, we try to remind people of that as well, that the church really was like strategic grounds, in aspects of Black liberation. And there were also non-religious people involved in that. It really was for the betterment of humanity. So moving to the next question, as a practitioner, why is therapy important for Black communities, especially in dealing with generational indoctrination and trauma?
Yeah, I really do. Here's what I will say, even as a licensed therapist, that therapy may not be the only way for someone to get well. And you alluded, you talked about that as well. Like peer support is also important. And in fact, the way that I practice therapy is that I do visualize that there's a community to support my clients as well. Mental health is so important to the Black community. And I think many of us are waking up to that even more after the pandemic, or maybe we're still in the pandemic, you all decide. But we see that mental health is going to be important in our liberation, and that we never had a formal process post-slavery into Jim Crow, into what today we're still experiencing a lot of horrific, oppressive experiences as a race in this country, throughout the diaspora. There hasn't been a formal process to say, hey, our early ancestors experienced really horrific things during slavery that, without addressing that trauma, gets passed down intergenerationally. And what I see as a clinician is that because we didn't have a formal process of healing, the community coming together, some people might say, oh, hey, that was the function of the church, maybe, but not exactly. Then what do we do now, several generations in? I'm 4 generations away from someone who was enslaved in my family. So just imagining, that was not that long ago. I'm 54. So when you look at that, that was not that long ago. So many of the things that my great grandfather may have experienced were passed down for sure in my family. Also, he was part indigenous, belonging to the indigenous group in the southern southern Alabama. So not only does my family have trauma from being enslaved, but they also have trauma from being indigenous and being removed from their lands, having to put their identity somewhere else. So when you look at that, even looking at that personally, how does that impact my own mental health? And there's something there for us to understand that we're constantly being activated. Our trauma is constantly being activated in this country because nothing really has improved in our situation. We've just kind of emerged out of chattel slavery. It doesn't mean that we are still not enslaved in some way in this country if we look at it for real. There are systems in places like to incarcerate us, to keep us under financial slavery. So all the things that we're dealing with, they still need to be addressed. And there's many things that get passed down. And in some ways, we've got to understand that a lot of slavery, after they stopped bringing in people from Africa, and it was illegal to bring in people from Africa for slavery in the slave community that was there was a lot of forced breeding. And that in and of itself tells us there was a lot of sexual trauma. And that sexual trauma in many families is still passed down. I can tell you as a clinician, there are people who experience sexual trauma generations after generations after generations in their family. As a result, I think, of unaddressed trauma that happened during their ancestors' enslaved years. There's other things that we can say, are passed down, but what we need to recognize in terms of intergenerational trauma is that it will not go away. It won't be just because you removed yourself from your current family situation that you can address it. Mental health means being able to look at the past from some various lenses and understand the complexity of what we've experienced. Some people will even say that white people are highly traumatized because they came from some kind of historical context, which made it okay to enslave people. So, if we're dealing with a whole society of traumatized people, where do we start? Where we have to start with ourselves, because we have to be able to stop the cycle. Even if in our lifetime we'll never find complete relief from the trauma, we have to be able to stop it from continuing. So that is why mental health work is so important. You can't let it go. You can't think it's going to go away.
Yes, and that also brings me to another follow-up question. When you mentioned that, people, look at the church as being the end-all be-all to the Black community, yet we still are dealing with a lot of, intergenerational trauma, mental health issues and such. And do you perhaps see the Black church having been a barrier for years to this process? Because yes, we had things that our ancestors had to deal with, but the idea to just pray it away or give it to God, has that, in your opinion, been harmful to us in some way?
Yeah. I mean, here's what I know happens. A lot of people will say, I'm going through all this anxiety and my family is falling apart. I'm feeling depressed. For them, they've been told, I need to go to talk to the pastor. But the pastor or the minister, while some of these people were trained to listen, there's something different between going to a therapist and going to a pastor, a church member, a coach, which is, here's what I'll say. I think that what happened was the church became our only resource. And the church wasn't really trained in trauma. We had some mechanisms that we knew worked innately as a Black community. I'm an arts-based therapist, so I really look at music, song, the somatics of your body when you're kind of going through some kind of non-ordinary process. So there may have been elements in that church to help us ground. But in terms of healing that trauma, no, there needed to be an organized effort. But I think historically is why I hesitate a little bit, is that we didn't have a lot of Black therapists back then. We didn't have a lot of trained people to understand trauma until really recently. A lot of mental health, you have to understand the mental health field really was created by white men to look at the white community, to help them adapt their mental health to the way that their society wanted them to live. It didn't include studies. It didn't include any kind of actual work with communities of color. We had to wait until Black clinicians came in to look at how does the Black community need to be treated for mental health. Until then, there were diagnoses that were given to slaves, droptomania. It was a diagnosis that was given to enslaved people when they tried to escape. So that's the mental health history, is that our mental health up until recently really was to keep Black people compliant with the systems that were already there. Now, the Black church definitely could have done more and could have stepped back in many cases to say, this is what we need to do now, heal ourselves as a people. But I don't really know, and it's hard for me to say who was really thinking about that. Who was really thinking about a concentrated effort for our mental health back in the day? I think that many people at that point were indoctrinated to believe that, like you said, God would take care of it. Or the indoctrination was so much in Christian ideology was that you'll just wait till you die to get your heaven. And I'm always one of those people that I tell people all the time, no, I want my heaven here on earth while I'm living. What does that look like? Mental health. It looks like the liberation of our psyche, the working and the practice with our nervous systems. Working with your nervous system, knowing your nervous system is liberation. Learning how and what activates you, how to create an ecosystem around you that's supportive is liberation. Now, what you decide will be the creator of that or who organizes that, that's up to you. But in your living body is a nervous system that is telling you this world is not aligned with how you should or would want to live, to be happy, to be in good health on all levels, mental, physical, and wherever. I might have jumped around there.
Oh, you said a word there. Absolutely. No, it's perfectly fine because yes, absolutely. And those are things that we can definitely agree with as an organization that encourages like evidence-based practices and, and actually empowered practices, because that is absolutely important as a people, especially as we continue to liberate ourselves. So your practice either includes or included the use of psychedelic assistance for patients. How does that produce healing without substance dependency? Because when we think of psychedelics, we think of a substance and oftentimes they may get like a bad rap. So how does that practice, how is it effective without creating like a sense of like substance of their abuse?
Sure. So, one thing I want to say about what we've come to understand to be substance abuse or substance use disorder is that it's not really actually based on the actual substance. I mean, the substance is not the actual thing that's creating the addiction, or the thing that we like to call or identify as addiction. The misuse of substance really has a lot of complexities involved with it. And when a person uses a substance, doesn't necessarily mean automatically they will become addicted. There are a set of factors there that someone will use a substance of any kind, whether that's coffee, whether that's smoking, whether that's sugar, whether that's foods of any kind, whether that's sex, that there's some factors in their makeup that are making addiction possible. And it's those factors that we have to look at. So in many psychedelic assisted therapies, we're taking a harm reduction approach, because what I do with the psychedelic substance of ketamine in therapy is a therapeutic model. So that means that it's held in a certain structure. It's not us, which is different from someone being at a party or going to a club and taking that same substance. Therapy, a therapeutic use of that substance, is structured, and it's also not just automatically given to the client. We have, as therapists, a certain things that we are looking for and assessing with the client to see if psychedelic assisted therapy would even be right for them. So the harm reduction approach is really taken in psychedelics to understand that it's not the automatic consumption of that substance. We're looking at the person's makeup. We're making sure that everybody understands how this substance works. So there's a lot of education that happens there. We're also breaking down barriers of criminalizing medicine, criminalizing drugs in general, because criminalization has done very little to help people who are having problems with substance. So we have to understand that approaches that include medical support, that include community support, that include the support of their mental health, is a better approach, and has been proven as evidence that this is a better approach when it comes to dealing with substance use disorder. Now, psychedelic assisted therapy, ironically, it is being used to help people with trauma. So we have to understand that within the client base that we're working with, and we're going to introduce psychedelics, that we're very careful with assessment. We're looking at, especially with ketamine and any of the other substance, we're looking at a person's ability to use this medicine within the structure that it's being provided. Now, we can't control if someone wants to go and use the medicine in a very social context, but we can give the information, we can give the education. So when I work with someone using ketamine assisted psychotherapy, let me say a little bit about ketamine in general. Ketamine is considered, it's a dissociative kind of anesthetic. It's used in veterinarian medicine. It's also used with children. So in general, it's considered probably one of the safest psychedelics because it has a number of uses medically. Now, when it comes to therapy, we're using ketamine in what they call an off-label application, meaning that it hasn't been set up by the FDA to say this is what ketamine's for, but research has shown that it can help people who are experiencing anxiety. It can help people who are experiencing depression. It may, in some cases, help people with OCD. And it can help some people with PTSD. There's some factors that we have to look at. And so as a psychedelic assisted therapist, I am using these medicines within a structure, like I mentioned earlier. So when a person says, I am thinking about engaging in psychedelic assisted therapy, for me specifically, it's ketamine. And let me make a small point there and put a pin in it. Right now, for therapists, the only psychedelic that's legal for us to use is ketamine. And that might even be state by state. So everyone check, you have to do your research. But where I live in the state of California, ketamine is legal to use for therapy. Now, what we have to understand, even though people are talking about MDMA, which the street name is ecstasy for people who may not know what that is, or psilocybin, the street name being mushrooms, there's research that's being approved by the government, but all of those substances are still considered Schedule 1 substances, meaning they're not legal. Even the research of it is not legal unless approved by the government. So a lot of people do not understand, because many states and certain cities are decriminalizing psychedelic substances does not mean they're legal. So going to a therapist and saying, I want to do mushrooms or LSD or, MDMA, that won't be available for the therapist to do with you in a legal sense. So it's just important to understand that ketamine right now is the legal substance that therapists can work with. And in understanding that, there's still protocols. Like the government is still not saying, go out and do ketamine with everybody you want to. We actually have to give sound assessments to say that all of the legal medicines, antidepressants, any of the legal psychiatric medicines haven't worked for this person. In some cases, they call that treatment resistant, meaning you've tried all of the different psychiatric methods and they have not worked. Psychiatry is the study of mental health medicine. So those methods have not worked, and this person is still experiencing their symptoms of anxiety, depression, PTSD. And now this is what we're using as the evidence for us to use ketamine. So there's many ways in which this is a brand new field, and there's so much to understand and so much to not just put in the hands of anyone. I think it's necessary, and I caution people, find out who you're working with, find out the training of that therapist, and really get a sense of, is this the right medicine for you? Is this the right experience for you? There may be other things. It's not a magic pill, but for some people, they have experienced relief from depression with ketamine. But again, I think even as you said at the beginning of the show, nothing is a magic pill. There's a lot of work that has to take place. And there's a small segment of psychedelics that's trying to present it as this is the way. And while I really believe in the healing power of this medicine, I am also very grounded in my approach of saying, I'm not going to tell you it's the only way. And there's the substances that are in these medicines called DMT. They are naturally in our body. They are naturally already there. So there's something to say about that. They have not done research to find out why in the human body that DMT is already there. Perhaps it is something that is helping us with our dream life, with our imagination. It's there to be activated and healed within us. What would those mechanisms be? It may not be ingesting the plant medicine. It may be going in nature. It may be dancing and movement. It may be sitting quietly with yourself. So, I just use that as a counterpoint, even for myself as a psychedelic assisted therapist.
Awesome. And I appreciate your explanation of that. It is very much needed in order to clarify any misunderstandings about that practice. Because when we think about now, what is the opioid crisis, right? People becoming addicted to prescription drugs. like the painkillers that were approved by like agencies like FDA and such, but yet you have these natural based that have been used for years by different cultures and different people that was not used in an abusive fashion. So I really appreciate your breakdown of that and the fact that it's not just simply something that you just say, "Hey, it's a free license to do whatever you want." And that is really really important for people to understand. And I hope that one day this is something that is approved in all across the United States. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate your breakdown of that.
Yeah. And I want to say too that
And thank you so much for being on our show today.
sure. Yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a delay, but I was just going to say that there's a lot of great research happening out there with veterans, and people should follow that research, because I do believe that this medicine can be very helpful for people with complex PTSD. And, to follow that research, they're doing it with people who've experienced cancer. A lot of different research is happening right now. So I think it's going to be an exciting movement, and especially for the Black community, where we've experienced so much intergenerational trauma. It could be a very helpful modality. Yeah, for all of us, but with cautions.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much once again for being a guest on our show, Camara.
Thank you
For
for having me.
our viewers, please do visit her website at the ancestralpsychotherapist.com, and also follow her on Instagram at the ancestral psychotherapist. We know it's early there on the West Coast, and I know you have another engagement, so we're going to let you go now. And thank you so much once again. Hope to stay in touch with you in the future. All right. Well, once again, we hope you enjoyed this conversation. It was very, very informative for me. I hope it was informative for you. Once again, please do follow Camara on social media. Visit her website if you are in the state of California and you are interested in securing her services in any way. Please do look her up. There's also a link to an article in the description and in the chat from an NPR episode, Connect with Your Ancestors. So please check that out. So this is a part of the show where we announce upcoming events and happenings. So today here in Atlanta, we are going to check out the screening of B1, the movie, at 8 p.m. Eastern at the new Black Wall Street facility in Lithonia. That is right across from Stonecrest Mall. It's a red carpet event, so if you'd like to get dressed up and take pictures, there's going to be a panel discussion as well after the screening. It is produced by the cinematographer for Contradiction, Rick Mathis, and also Boyce Watkins and others. So if you can join us, we'll be meeting up at 7:30. The screening will take place at 8 o'clock. So please do meet us there. Tickets are $15. You can secure those in the Eventbrite. You can also access them through the link that is in the chat. Also coming up on August 25th, our Philadelphia group will be doing their monthly virtual vibe at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Join them for some, even if you're not in the Philly area, join them for some great conversation and also some ways to strategize on meetups and other happenings in the area. That link will be shared in the chat as well. And also on August 26th, join Cynthia and the Chicago crew for coffee and conversations at Afro Joe's at 12:30 p.m. Central Time. That link will also be shared in the chat, and it is also in the description. So if you are in the Chicago area, do join our Chicago group for some coffee and conversations. Just a reminder, BN is looking for new, enthusiastic, and dedicated board members. If you are interested in joining and serving on our board, especially as we are reviewing and revising our bylaws, putting in new procedures and policies in place, and to make sure that we stay a fun, informative, and friendly community as we always have been, and you want to get in and actually, and you are dedicated to doing the work, please do. If you'd like to have fun while working, please do place your bid to be a board member. The link will be in the chat. And also, I'm happy to announce that after a brief hiatus, I am actively back with the Godless Gospel Project, which is still looking for singers, particularly tenors and altos. This is paid. This is a paid opportunity. It is in conjunction with the Freedom from Religion Foundation. But shout out to Andre Forbes and Dan Barker for being wonderful on this project. If you are a singer and you would like to be a part of this amazing project, please do submit an audition. The link will be shared in the chat. It is also in the description. We would love to have you with us. And as always, we will keep you posted on social media on any updates and on upcoming shows. Also, if you are going to be in Atlanta Labor Day weekend, and you are attending DragonCon, check us out. We will be tabling there from September 1st through the 5th. I will be speaking at the Skeptrack and also be participating in the parade. And we will be doing a live show from DragonCon. That is also my birthday weekend, my birthday of September 4th. And so we will be celebrating all that weekend. So please do show your love. If you want to tune into the show that day, also show your love for Black Non-Believers for my birthday, before and or after. Like I said, any given time of the year is a good time to support our work. But if you will be in the Atlanta area, DragonCon, a Labor Day weekend for DragonCon, please do check us out. We will be in the at the Hilton Atlanta on the second floor, which is where the Skeptrack is located. So please check us out there. Finally, if you are looking for a great gift to give at any given time of the year, pick up a copy of Name Dropping, which is the frustratingly fun movie trivia card game, which is created by now with former In the Cut guest and also now new board member Deanna Williams and Jesus Reyna. Do click on the link in the chat to purchase your copy of this very fun game. This wraps up this episode of In the Cut. We truly hope you enjoyed the show and that you will enjoy and that you will join us again. As a reminder, we air every first and third Sunday, every Saturday. Woo! Being a Sunday. We air every first and third Saturday of each month. Please don't forget to like this video and spread the word. Follow us on Facebook at Black Nonbelievers, Instagram at BNonbelievers Inc., and Twitter at BNonbelievers, where the B and the N are capitalized. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Please like this video. Subscribe to our channel. Share the video. We are getting closer and closer to monetizing our channel through super chats whenever we go live. We thank each and every one of you for tuning into this show, watching the replays, and also sharing the content. So please do continue to support this platform and the content that we provide here. Also, do find your local BN affiliate on Meetup, or you are welcome to join all of them. We are always looking for new affiliate leaders to help with our team. There is a volunteer form on the website that you can access if you would like to be a part of the BN team in any way. And of course, we cannot emphasize enough the importance of supporting our organization financially. Your donations are tax deductible, and you can visit the link on our website to donate. And if you want to represent us even more, you can get your swag, you can get your shirts, hoodies, mugs, shot glasses, and more from our online store. You can access that through our website and also through the link. Take care. We hope you enjoy the rest of your Saturday. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Okay, gonna get off. It was another great episode.